service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
Black. Black, black, black. Black on black, black. Yeah, hey. Okay, black, black, black. Black on black, black. My thoughts so black, black, black. I'm black, my skin is so black. I'm rocking that black on black is black.
Black rims on these black wheels in this black whip with this black.
Black,
so black on black on black on black on
black, 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 black on black, black. My thoughts so black, black, black. I'm black, my skin is so black. I'm rocking all black, everything is black.
Rims on these black wheels in this black whip with this black.
Black on black, black,
So
black,
black on black on black on.
Hey, black out the coop, hop out the roof when I run into you. Thoughts black as the dark side of the moon. Won't be no truce, won't be no truce. At your funeral in an all black suit. Couple white girls rocking all black too. Me and your man marching in all black boots. Call up the troops, call up the troops.
Happy Friday, and welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire. And Andy, who is this?
This is Buddy.
Well, this is the right way to kick off the show. Black on black, everything black. We are back after the Thanksgiving holiday break, and we are rushing toward the Christmas holiday, which I have to say, Andy, it feels like Christmas comes earlier and earlier every year. I don't even know what to say, and I feel like I have said this. I said this maybe on a show earlier that I just was in before Halloween. I was in some store and there was no Halloween stuff. It was all Christmas. It wasn't even Halloween yet, and it was all Christmas.
The disrespect.
It is disrespect, I think. I mean, so someone said that Thanksgiving is just a holiday that falls within the Christmas season. And I feel like that is more and more right. I also feel like people just want to be happy, right? People want the lights.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, Thanksgiving is not really much shopping, right?
Other
than food.
Right.
And maybe, plane tickets and train tickets, stuff like that. But, Cash are like, you know what? Let's get the Christmas shopping done just a little bit early because starting now in a couple of weeks, it's going to be mayhem. And I think folks ain't trying to deal with that. Yeah.
And also now, because ain't no telling what prices are going to be in 2 weeks. But yes, so we are rushing toward the holiday season, and I wanted to, as folks start to think about Christmas and Kwanzaa gifts, I thought that I would highlight for the next couple of weeks the books of some of our guests that we've had on this year that might be good gift ideas, either for you or for someone on your list. And so first up is actually a book I talked about a couple of weeks ago. From our first guest that is going to be up today, and that is Michael Harriot, and his book, Black AF History, The Unwashed Story of America. So I wanted to, because Michael's going to be on, I wanted to bring this back up, but also because I actually really love Michael Harriot's writing, and if you haven't read anything by Michael, if you don't have the book, if you didn't, read his writing at The Root, or you don't subscribe to Contraband Camp, which is his new Substack, you really need to, right? He's just a great writer, and he's also hilarious. So I spend as much time laughing when I'm reading the stuff that he's writing on very serious issues, right? He's just funny, and he's an extraordinary writer. And I feel like he's a comedian, actually. And he might not call himself a comedian, but I would literally pay money to see his stand-up show talking about history. So he uses humor in this book, right, and exceptional writing, right, to tell the history, our history, in a way that I think any of us can relate to. So on page 130 of the book, Michael tells a story about how he was sick with the flu, but was desperate to participate in a talent show at his school, and that he needed his grandmother to pray for him so he could be healed. And so I'm not going to tell you the story because you should get the book. But I will say that I laughed for 3 whole pages and was cracking up, and then suddenly was like, what does this story have to do with Black history? Right? And then I realized that it was the lead-in to talking about the history of the Black church in America, right? Because he talks about what his grandmother did to pray for him to make sure that he could be in this talent show. And it's a hilarious story. And for some of y'all, it's actually going to be your own family history. So just a really great way to talk about history that isn't like an academic, tune from someone's class, right? But it's a great book. I hope you all will consider getting it and sharing it this holiday season because as we approach 2026, I think you all are feeling it, that we all need to have some historical perspective about what we are confronting in America and how we are going to confront the state of our union, right? So today, the Supreme Court said that they would take up the question of Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. Now, I don't need to remind you all that Black Americans got our American citizenship because of the 14th Amendment. Part of the Reconstruction Amendments that abolished slavery, gave us our citizenship and due process and equal protection under the law, right? Gave us our voting rights. And Trump believes that he can, with a stroke of a pen, eliminate those constitutional protections. And the Supreme Court, instead of just dismissing him out of hand, has said, well, we'll consider it. And I have to say, folks, that I do not feel good about this. They are going to try and say it's all about illegal immigration because you've heard that before, and all that doesn't really matter, right? This is about a single individual believing that they have the right to say who is and isn't a citizen in this country, and therefore giving themselves the right to be the only person who can say who can be cast out of the country, who gets to stay in the country, and who gets to be let into the country. Folks know that he has already said that he wants to deport American citizens who are currently incarcerated. We know who he's talking about when he talks about folks who are incarcerated. He's already threatened to revoke the citizenship of individuals who disagree with him. This week, he called the Black Somali community in Minnesota garbage and ranted on social media about freezing migration from third world countries. Now, y'all know he called them a different kind of countries, right, in his first term. While continuing to say that the U.S. would offer asylum to white South Africans. And on top of that, the U.S. is apparently murdering people on boats in the Caribbean, but they can't quite figure out who gave the order to do it or something. We're going to talk about some of this stuff later on in the show. But first up, we have Michael Harriot on to talk about the fabulous new Peacock documentary series, High Horse, the Black Cowboy. And you all remember that a couple of weeks ago, me and Anoa tried to do justice to this series as we talked about it, and hopefully you all went to go watch it. And if you didn't, Michael is going to join us to talk about how it came together and the inspiration for telling this part of our history. And if you didn't see it when it came out, hopefully you'll be inspired to watch it this weekend. And in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Jeet Hare, the national affairs correspondent at The Nation, to talk about the extrajudicial killings of people on boats in the Caribbean and the Trump administration's imperialist approach to American foreign policy. But when we come forward, we're going to pick up our conversation from 2 weeks ago about Black cowboys and a very special documentary with author and journalist Michael Harriot. Stay with us. This is the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Imagine being a million miles away. Tremfya Kuselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
I'm at the mini mart in a mini skirt, about to steal your man in a torn up t-shirt. This ain't the Hamptons, we all got tramp stamps, acrylic covered in barbecue at the line dance. Gas up, throw me in a saddle, spin me like a spur, make my snake skin rattle. Sassed up, round 'em like cattle, looking like Beyonce with a lasso. I'm a buckle bunny, drive my own truck, got my own money.
This is the Black Pack, and you all know that we love Adele Tanner. So joining us now to discuss the untold story of the real American cowboy is journalist, author, and commentator Michael Harriot. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. So we were a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the new documentary. We played a whole bunch of country music just because I felt like it, and so I was trying to figure out how can we play more today. How can I have more excuses to play all these black country artists who are suddenly always been there, right? But suddenly getting a little bit more attention, and that really is a part of, in many ways, the story that's told in High Horse, the Black Cowboy. So it's produced by Jordan Peele and his Monkey Paw Productions. But were a part of it, and I remember when I sat down to watch it, thinking, I got to get Michael on the show to talk about how this came about and what was the inspiration. How did you come to be involved in this really great series?
So the origin story of the High Horse, the Black Cowboy, is really the movie Nope. So when Jordan Peele made Nope, he was intrigued by one story. If you remember one of the opening scenes of Nope, Keke Palmer's character tells the story about the first moving image is of a black man on a horse.
Right.
But we know the name of the horse. We know the name of the photographers. We know the name of the guy who took that clip. His name is Royberg. But we don't know the name of the man who was on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan Peele became fascinated by it and went down a rabbit hole and became fascinated by the story of black cowboys. And then he decided for 2 years, like he spent like time documenting 3 areas: land, the image, and the culture of black cowboys and the history of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he realized he had to make a real movie, and so he had all this footage and didn't know how to make it into a cohesive story. And somebody mentioned my name, and they called me up and they said, "You think you could help us?" And so that was my involvement with it. Is kind of taking all of these ideas and making it a story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we came up with.
Yeah, I really did appreciate it. And there's the opening, there's a quote from you, and you say, if there were no black cowboys, America wouldn't exist. Talk about that. What is that? What did you mean when you said that to open the show?
Well, remember that the first European settlers who came to colonial America, to Jamestown, they starved to death because the first people didn't know how to farm, they didn't know how to hunt, and then these Africans showed up. So that's really the first, the beginning of what the success of America began. But by 1700, remember, most of those people were the Africans in America were what they call cattle hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the predominant job. And so these were the original cowboys, right? When you think about like people like George Washington and, these great warriors who fought in the American Revolution, nobody ever questioned, like, how did they become chosen to be military leaders?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were just some of the few white men who knew how to ride a horse.
Right.
Because tending cattle was primarily a black person's job. And it's kind of absurd to think that they had all of these people tending to the land, doing all of their work, but the white people were out there somehow tending to cattle. Like, that's a crazy, absurd idea if you know anything about history.
Right.
But that's just something that they teach us, like the cowboys were white.
Right.
There is no if you look through a lot of what I do is look through like historical newspapers, and there is like you didn't see the word cowboy associated with white people until after emancipation.
Right. Yeah. So that comes up in the film series as well. That it was a derogatory term, right? Used to talk about the folks who were doing the work. The work with cattle, right? The folks who were able to handle horses. It was a derogatory term until it became cool, right? And then the documentary series also spends time then talking about what happened when the kind of iconography, right, enters in, and pieces of what were cool about the black cowboys get co-opted by others. And that's I think when you talked about the land, image, and culture, it's that image part that gets co-opted and then we get erased out of the story.
Yeah, and not only just the image, right, but just all of the stuff that, like, we couldn't go into all of every little aspect, but, in the beginning of America, because white people wanted to be, had this British ideal, they were called sirs. Right? Boy was like the opposite of sir.
Right.
And so cowboys were the opposite of this British knight that we co-opted. So the reason we use the term sir for a white man or for a honorific only in America is the same reason we use the term boy. And the other thing that it is important to know about this is that horses and cattle do not show up in this continent until America, to black people do. The first horses on this continent arrived with the first Africans on this continent in 1525. The first, like, there's the authority on this is a guy at LSU, or this doctor, this genetic historian, and he's traced all of the DNA of the cattle and the people who tended to them back to Africans. And for years he's been saying, like, I don't know where this white idea of white cowboys came, because we know like most of the people were black. And so the people who know it,
right,
you know, just assume that everybody assumes it, and they separate it from the movies. But most of us think that, like, even the idea that 1 out of 4 cowboys were black is a misnomer, because most of the cowboys were black, and then after white people had to tend their own cattle, they started doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does. I mean, I think that Andy and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago too, when the show launched, about how, you know, cowboy culture is a part of so many of our family culture, right? Like, it's a part of our own personal culture that we may not have attributed, right, to the actual history, right? But I grew up riding. Right. Like my sister, may she rest in eternal peace, was a bona fide cowgirl. Like, she went to rodeos. She, you know, like, she never stopped riding. My great grandfather was a buffalo soldier. Like, all of that it's a part of our family lore. But it you know, and obviously as I got older, right, and learned the history and understood the sort of erasure of black folks, and I could make those connections. But we don't necessarily think about ourselves as being in that lineage, even when we grow up, right, around horses, or we grow up, you know, as having that culture that feels maybe somewhat adjacent because someone else has said that it's theirs.
Yeah, and that is true. So with so much of history that we don't know that, like, what our lineage traces back to. I used to joke a lot and say that, like, when every black man turns 50, he's either going to wear one of 2 hats, a Kango or a cowboy hat. Like, you got to choose. And it's because, like, it's been a part of our culture forever. Yeah. Right? And we think, well, it's a lot of people think that we're adopting an outside culture when we are the first ones to do many of those things. And it's interesting that I always point out that this wasn't stolen from black people, because if you listen to the people who originally created, for instance, country music, they say, oh yeah, a black person taught me, right? Like, all of them, they don't even try to hide it. They were like, yeah, I learned all this from a black person, and then it got whitewashed.
Yeah, and so the other piece I want to try and talk about, because I felt like this piece was, I mean, we talk about this, you know, when we hear about, you know, black folks losing their land in the South, or when we talk about, you know, eminent domain, or, you know, gentrification in black cities up north. But there really was, and this was maybe it's the second part 2 of the series, where I watched, and I couldn't go on to part 3. Right? I was upset, and you know, because the sort of the relationship to you know, land, and the importance of land and land ownership, that is also tied to, you know, this history of cowboyism, I think that's a word, right? Is so very connected, and we don't often kind of, you know, spend time looking at the ways in which how much we have lost and continue to lose, right? When we think about the black farmers today, right? Like, when Trump talks about saving whatever the farmers through tariffs, he is not talking about restoring any of the reparations that black farmers should and continue to get. But talk about that part for a minute too, about the way that the theft is not just about the iconography, is not just about the the cultural appropriation, but it was about actual material things that Black folks had worked to gain.
Yeah, so one of the most amazing stories in American history is the fact that we were 90% of Black people were enslaved in 1865. By 1900, we owned 19 million acres of land. And by 1940, we had lost 90% of that land. And it wasn't because, we were poor or anything. It was just taken from us. And not just taken from Black people, taken from Black people to give to white Americans.
Right.
And it was done in many ways. Most of it and a lot of it by the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And they did it in so many ways. Eminent domain, just declaring the land unuseful, denying Black people loans. And most people don't know that there are actual USDA banks, and they're controlled by the community, the people who live in those communities, and the people who are in that community are literally on the board and get to deny or approve loans. And they just don't do it to Black people. And that's the basis of this long history of land theft. The statistics that said, when you want to plant a crop, you usually have to get a loan. And a white farmer takes about 37 days to get a loan, and a Black farmer takes about 387 days to get a loan approval. It is just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And it felt so. I was really appreciative of the fact that piece was a part of this story, because it felt really important and a piece that we don't often connect. And I have 75,000 questions for you. And we're not going to get to all of them, but on the other side, I do want to talk a little bit more about this, and just some history. Right, today is a historic anniversary, and I want to talk about that with you. I know you wrote a piece on it, so I want to talk about that, but more with Michael Harriot and High Horse, the Black Cowboy, when we come forward. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch is apologizing to Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani after her brother made inflammatory remarks about him.
I look forward to being a mayor for each and every New Yorker, including Jewish New Yorkers.
At a private event, her brother reportedly called Mamdani, quote, an enemy of the Jewish people, end quote. Senator Lindsey Graham says witnessing Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo sign a peace deal in the Oval Office was a historic moment. He praised President Trump for brokering the agreement, noting the decades-long conflict has claimed millions of lives. And the estate of the notorious B.I.G. is denying claims in Netflix's new docuseries about Sean Diddy Combs, including that funeral costs were paid using Biggie's record deal money. Wayne Barrow, who helps manage the estate, told The Breakfast Club's Lauren LaRosa the story is not true and called it disrespectful to imply Biggie's family would not notice that. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Santa Ana, we've got a SIG alert with 3 left lanes, including the HOV lane closed on the northbound 55 before 17th Street. After a crash, got a big stack of red from the 405 in Anaheim Hills, a stall on the eastbound 91 after Weir Canyon. Center lane blocked here, slow from Kramer. And up in LA, West Covina, crash on the eastbound 10. It's before Villa Verde. 2 right lanes are blocked. You're going to start tapping those brake pedals from before Rosemead.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Is this the tether? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A little more perspective on LeBron's double-digit scoring streak that came to an end Thursday night in Toronto. The streak ended at 1,297 consecutive games where LeBron scored 10 or more points. The streak started on January 6, 2007, when LeBron was in his 4th season in the NBA with Cleveland. The 1,297 is an NBA record that will likely never be broken. Michael Jordan had 866 straight games scoring in double figures during his 15-year career. career. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has 787. The longest current streak among active players is Kevin Durant with 267. Durant is 1,030 games behind LeBron. At age 37 and playing in his 18th season, it is doubtful Durant will be around to play that many games to catch LeBron. Stick a fork in this record. This is one record LeBron won't have to worry about after he retires, whenever that will be. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
Aging happens, but giving up what you love, that's optional. This holiday season, start a conversation with your family about building habits that support brain health and keep life fulfilling. With AARP's Staying Sharp, you'll find tools, videos, recipes, and even games to help make healthy living simple and fun. Don't just age, thrive. Visit stayingsharp.org/get started.
The laws have not changed in California. All workers must be paid properly and protected from retaliation. Retaliating against a worker or not paying them because of their immigration status is illegal. Don't believe the lies. California laws protect all workers, regardless of immigration status. Document retaliation and wage theft. Report it to the Labor Commissioner's office. Learn about your labor rights. Visit wagetheftisacrime.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with journalist and author and commentator Michael Harriot. And Michael, so 70 years ago today, in Montgomery, Alabama, Black folks took a bold stand that would, of course, change the course of history in Alabama and in the United States when the Montgomery bus boycott started, that as what was supposed to be a one-day boycott, right, and quickly turned into a year-long effort of community organizing. And I guess we say we often look to that, even now as people talk about boycotts, we look at that boycott as, you know, an example of one of the most successful community-led boycotts, right, for social change. And today you wrote about, or at least I saw it today, you wrote about the boycott in Contraband Camp in a piece that's entitled "Everything You Know About the Montgomery Bus Boycott Is Wrong." You write, in 1955, a brave nonviolent protester named Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to sit on the back of the Montgomery, Alabama bus. Fortunately, a brave brave civil rights leader named Martin Luther King Jr. organized a boycott that economically crippled the city, eventually forcing the city of Montgomery to desegregate public transportation. It's a great story. There's just one problem. None of that actually happened. So I read that entry and I was like, okay, what are we talking about here? So talk to the listeners about how what we learned about the Montgomery bus boycott isn't actually quite accurate, either in the lead up to or even in the resolution of segregation in Montgomery.
Yeah. So the first thing about it is, I think people know kind of that Rosa Parks wasn't the first person, and they point to Claudette Colvin, but Claudette Colvin wasn't the first person. As a matter of fact, the first person to actually try to do something about the buses was a woman named Viola White in 1944, and she refused to give up her seat. She was fined $10. She sued the city, and her case mysteriously disappeared. Montgomery police officers kidnapped her daughter, sexually assaulted her, and the police officer who did it disappeared. And her case disappeared. And so people refuse to comply to segregation laws all the time. And the other thing that people don't know is they believe that there was like a black section and a white section, when in reality, white people owned all the seats. There was in actuality, there was a sign. And if the bus was empty, the sign was halfway through the bus. But if there were enough white people on the bus, black people had to stand up. There was no black section. Right. White people owned all the seats. So when Rosa Parks sat down that day, she actually sat in the black section. And the bus driver later put the sign behind her, and even though there was no one asking to sit down, he wanted Rosa Parks to get up. Now, that's important to know because, again, Rosa Parks never refused to give her seat to a white person. Nobody wanted her seat. She was not sitting in the white section, right? It is like a lot of that is dismissed. And the other thing that is important to know is that the Montgomery bus boycott was the idea of a black woman named Joanne Gibson, who was the head of an organization called the Black Women's Political Council. And they had been meeting with the mayor and threatening the city with this the entire time. And they knew, but most people don't know, that the city of Montgomery didn't run the buses. The bus was a privately owned company, as was most cities at the time, called National Bus Lines out of Chicago. They wanted the city to desegregate the buses too, and the city wouldn't. Right? So most of the story that we believe is like the city lost all this money. No, a private company lost all this money, and as soon as they started losing money, they changed their mind, and the city threatened to lock up the bus drivers if they didn't comply with the segregation laws. So even the bus drivers wanted the segregation laws to end.
Wow. So I wanted to bring this up because it both is a part of erasure is not necessarily, it doesn't have to just be whitewashing, right? It means like we also have where we take where folks, right, take our history, the like fullness of our history and the fullness of our liberation efforts, and condense them down to like historical sound bites. And that's why I was saying earlier in the show how much I appreciate your writing, both because you do it in a way that's really accessible and it's hilarious. I was saying that, you might not consider yourself a comedian, but I would pay money to go to your stand-up show to listen to you do American history comedy. But it's true in your book. So I have your book here with me, and I've been holding it up and suggesting that people put it on their gift list for this holiday season. But you often talk about in your writing these small acts by individual people, right? These small acts of that people take for their own liberation that add up to a moment, right, where there's sort of collective action. And I feel like that is what the way in which you are trying to help people understand what happened 70 years ago, right, during the Montgomery bus boycott, right, which is you named a bunch of people in the piece, right, who took acts that, were then condensed down to this one story.
Right. And then the important thing about that to me is that, like, we believe, like, segregation was just the way and everybody followed it. And until these people had this bright idea and changed it, and no one ever conceded to this system that white people enforced, right? No, it made no sense to anyone. There was no logic behind it. And it only made sense because of racism. It didn't, like, the losing money they didn't care about.
Right.
There is no other word for it other than white supremacy. Because the interesting thing, to me, the most interesting thing about the Montgomery bus boycott is that when it started, right, the white people were mad, right? Like, they weren't losing money. They weren't, like, nothing happened to them, but for some reason they were shooting at black people who were just walking down the street. And, like, the story, this nice, clean story of the Montgomery bus boycott that we're taught obfuscates the reality of white supremacy and how nonsensical it is.
And violence, because you talk about in the piece in Contraband Camp, you say it wasn't, this was we understand it to be a nonviolent act of civil disobedience by black folks, but it wasn't nonviolent at all, which is what you're describing right now. Like, there was violence, and the violence was white folks shooting at black folks who were walking.
Right, and the fact that is the way segregation was enforced. It wasn't just some words on a piece of paper. They enforced it through violence. That was the only way that it could exist.
Yeah. And that's, again, I want to, there are these through lines, right, throughout our history that feel like it's important. I was saying earlier, important that as we think about what we're facing in America today, that we have some historical perspective, so that we're clear, right, about what is happening, and what is to come. And I think that this sort of, from the stories in your book, right, to the documentary series, High Horse, to the Montgomery bus boycott, which we all think that we know and understand, but don't often have the full picture of, that is really important right now, right, for us to have the full picture on this. I just appreciate your contribution to all of this, and particularly, again, for laying things out so clearly and so plainly in a time that's when we're seeing all of the rollbacks, right, of things that people fought for, that we're seeing so many parallels to history. It's just important that people understand that history. So I do want to talk when we come forward. I want to talk to you about sort of a new moment that we are in, that is both some weird erasure, but also like capture, like black culture capturing through AI. And something that I learned about because of a post that you made that I was blown away by. But we're gonna talk about that when we get to the other side, because it's fascinating and I'm not sure that people know that it's happening. That our culture is being captured by AI. But we're gonna talk about that with Michael Harriot when we come forward. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase. Cedars-Sinai is helping shape the future of Los Angeles, working alongside local communities and showing up with resources and healthcare programs that open doors for people across the city. Through career development programs like Next Gen Healthcare Pathways and partnerships with over 200 organizations like Black Men in White Coats, Cedars-Sinai is educating and empowering future healthcare leaders right here in LA. With access to education, mentorships, and hands-on experiences, we can build a healthier Los Angeles together. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
The holidays can be a time of increased stress for those struggling with opioid or stimulant addiction. They can also be a time for pause, reflection, opportunity, and new beginnings. This holiday season, choose treatment and recovery. Embrace the company of family and friends and create special moments. Find a proven opioid or stimulant addiction treatment provider near you at choosechangeca.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are wrapping up our conversation with Michael Harriot, and I want to just say thank you again, Michael, for joining us. This has been great conversation for me, and I think for others. We're also live on YouTube, and so folks are chiming in the chat there. So we've been talking about the erasure and whitewashing of our history, from black cowboys and cowgirls to how we lose the full story of our history when it gets watered down. But now we're seeing I don't even know what to call it, this sort of erasure in the cultural space, right, with these artificial intelligence, music, and AI created performers. And so I saw one of your posts on Blue Sky the other day about this gospel singer named Solomon Ray, I think his name is, who just hit the iTunes Top 100 Christian and Gospel Albums chart. But Solomon Ray is not real. So I was, read the story. I read, a little piece on his creator, who is like a black MAGA guy, who I guess is a MAGA rapper. I don't really understand what that means. But this all just seems, when we talk about this sort of being herded into this virtual reality, this feels like it really coming full circle, where there are black artists singing R&B and gospel who are fake, and that someone has programmed them to get us to download their art.
Right, and I think we have historical examples, right? Like, that's kind of how rock and roll was created. Like, just, taking the art that Black people created and co-opting it. Same with country music. One of my favorite facts about country music as it relates to this documentary is that the official song of country music, Home on the Range, was written by a black dude. Right? But it's just co-opted. And what these AI generators do, right, is what they do is they basically aggregate like sound or notes or words, and then they say they're creating something new, which is how they get away with it, which is the same thing that white musicians did for centuries with our music. But here's the interesting thing. When black rappers and black creators started sampling with hip-hop, all of a sudden, it didn't fly. They were stealing, right? And the white artists who they sampled said, no, you can't use this. What is AI besides sample? Right? And so you can go right now and take something you've written and say, hey, rewrite this in the style of Michael Harriot. And what they'll do is just search the internet for everything that I've written and kind of create a semi-version of me. They're using my content to create something new. They're sampling me. They're sampling these gospel artists. They're sampling these R&B singers to make stuff for white people. And the AI models benefit. The people who make it benefit. There's a guy with the hit music, a hit record on the chart, but the black creators don't get anything. Isn't that the story of America?
Right. And so this is why I appreciate you, because I was very much outraged. And as I, like I should have been, and other people should be too. But that was just really helpful. I mean, this you're right. This is exactly what always happens. That our stuff gets stolen and appropriated and then fed back out into the cultural space as something that someone else did. But it's still shocking nonetheless, I feel like, because I think that people don't know that it's AI. And I think that that's the part that is not only are, artists, writers and others, other creators, not getting anything from the use of their body of work, but the consumer may not even know that the person that they think, like when I saw, because I won't say I went down a rabbit hole because I don't have that level of attention for these things, but I was shocked to, he had photos, they're like AI generated photos of this black man, standing next to his pickup truck and, with his Kangol on, the thing that you said, one picture with a Kangol, one picture with a cowboy hat. But just the creation, of whole cloth of someone that does not exist, that if you're not paying attention, and this is like with everything that's AI right now, including the videos that are out there, if you are not paying attention, you won't actually know that you're listening to someone who actually doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? This has an insidious side to it that the train is off the track now. Yeah. The horse is out of the barn, and we won't know what is real or what is fake. And an artist, a real artist, a person who writes real music, will have it stolen from them, their work's stolen from them. And when you think about the fact that, like, we know that employers and corporations don't want to hire black people anyway.
Right.
Like, but they want what we produce. What does this portend for the future of black employees, black artists, black creators? They're gonna they figuring out ways to replace us, right? Yeah. And our music and our culture, and they love it when we do it, but they just don't like the black art, black people created.
Right. I want to go back to High Horse, the Black Cowboy, the documentary series that is on Peacock that I'm urging everyone to go and watch this weekend if you have not watched it already. Because I wondered when I was watching it if there was a story that stood out for you, right? As you all were, as you were sort of weaving together all of the parts that Jordan Peele had, been investigating. Was there something that stood out for you? And what was that?
to me, undoubtedly the story of Bill Pickett. And I wish we could have told the whole thing, but here's the short version. There was a guy, there was this all-black town in Texas that was created by enslaved people. And this 13-year-old kid one day, they were known for, tending cattle. And this 13-year-old kid noticed that they used dogs to wrestle their bulls down to the ground by biting their lip. And he started doing it. And he entered a rodeo and created the sport of bulldog. So anytime you see a wrestler, wrestle a bull, a rodeo person wrestle a bull to the ground, they're doing bulldogging. What a black man named Bill Pickett created. He was one of the first black movie stars. He was a huge star, and then they said black people couldn't participate in rodeos anymore. Right. And right now, there's a little dog. My dog is sitting at my feet. His name is Pickett because, he's named after Bill Pickett. But the interesting thing is, this history of what he created has basically been erased. No one talks about the fact that the first 14 winners of the Kentucky Derby were black men. And then they said, no, black people can't participate anymore. All of these sports, all of these exercises that we think are white people, that's how they erased us. By saying, oh, no, if you got to compete against white people, we just can't let y'all compete because you will win.
Right.
And so it wasn't just like we hate black people. It was like, we want the black people to be, the white people to be the heroes, the winners, the creators. And that's how they did it.
Yeah. So I also, I of course knew who Bill Pickett was, right? But the what I learned through watching the documentary series was, again, I feel like sort of a bunch of it, not just about Bill Pickett, but just reminds me again of my own story, right? Like the story of my own family. The part of the series that talks about the jockeys, right? That talks about the Kentucky Derby, that talks about horse racing, right? It reminded me, right, that we spent a lot of time at racetracks when I was a kid, right? But it feels like, again, this idea that the sort of broad erasure, even for when we think about our own individual families, the sort of disconnect, because we just don't make the connections anymore, because the dominant culture has made it something else. So I want to thank you. I want to tell everyone to go out and get your book, which I have right here, Black AF History, to watch the documentary series, and to check you out on Contraband Camp if people are not subscribed on Substack, to subscribe. And just appreciate your work and appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, when we come forward, we're going to talk with Jeet here from The Nation about the bombing of boats in the Caribbean. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Staten Island is getting nearly $30 million for park and public space upgrades as part of Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams' latest budget. The Staten Island Zoo will receive $8 million, with more going to Snug Harbor and the Staten Island Museum. This may be Adams' final visit to the borough while in office. A federal appeals court is blocking a Trump administration move to stop a Biden-era grant aimed at hiring school